Okay, it says that I'm live. Hopefully everyone can hear me. Hello. Wait a few minutes. Okay, so hello everybody. Welcome back to my channel, The Francophile Reader. So today I wanted to talk about my experience with language learning, how I learned French. Now, I've been taking French my entire life. I started sick, but I really started learning French mostly in high school, and I did have some phenomenal teachers, so that really helped. But I want to give some tips about what you can do while you're in self-isolation to improve whatever language you're working on. And it's also a way for me to reflect on how learning Latin, which is something I'm currently working on, is different from learning French. And also kind of maybe encourage myself to keep up with Latin and to really keep with it, even though I have a million and one things I have to do right now and so many books to read, mostly for my PhD exam in August. But yeah, I thought I would just kind of talk about my French learning experience. And, you know, if you have questions, you can ask in the comments, or if you have suggestions based on your own experience language learning, feel free to share that as well. Because there are so many different ways to learn a language. Yes, obviously the best way to improve your spoken skills is to live in a region where you're forced to speak the language. I have definitely, my spoken French was fine before I came here to Geneva, but definitely being in Geneva, my spoken language skills have definitely improved quite a lot because I have to use a lot. So yeah. So I teach French at the college level because I'm an instructor for languages on the lower level. I've been teaching for about 3 years now. And thankfully, I'm not teaching right now because I can't imagine how difficult it must be for teachers mid-semester to switch to online classes. Thankfully, I'm not, a part of that right now. But in the United States, the approach that is taken it's what's called the ACTFL. The ACTFL is, or the ACTFL standards. ACTFL is it stands for American Council for the Teaching of Foreign Languages. And basically the idea is that you learn a modern language in the target language. So French is taught in French, Italian is taught in Italian, Spanish is taught in Spanish for the modern languages, not Latin. Although at the University of Kentucky, where I went for my undergraduate and for my master's program, they had an entire master's program in active Latin. I definitely recommend looking up Terence Thunberg and his approach, but basically the syllabus was in Latin, people spoke everything in Latin. I remember being in the elevator with the professor while he was talking to a student in Latin, and I was like, is he speaking Latin? What? Anyway, so those programs do exist, but for the most part, ACTFL is for modern languages. So that is the way that I teach French, and that is the way that I actually learned French the most. So the first thing is try to remain in the target language. Obviously, that's harder when you're by yourself, but what I do recommend is if you're reading things, try to read authentic material. What that means is material that is produced by people who use the target language as their native language for people who use that language as their native language. So don't use like texts that have been created for, English speakers learning Italian. Like, don't use Italian that is created to teach non-Italians how to speak Italian, if that makes sense. Try to find Italian, like, news articles or something that are clearly addressing an Italian speaking audience. Because then it's the most authentic, it's the most, you're like actually engaging with material that is produced, not for teaching. Well, I guess news articles have a teaching purpose, but like not for teaching the language. And so then you learn a lot about the culture that way. You learn a lot about, and culture is such a huge part of language. So I think the first thing I would say is that, yes, you may not be able to improve your spoken skills a lot, although we do have the internet. So I'm sure you can find a lot of, video chat options for that. But if you're just working on reading, I would say definitely read authentic material. The other thing that I would recommend is not to read things in translation. So translation, again, it tends to be kind of similar in that translation is not exactly the same thing, but it is not the original. And in my experience, French doesn't translate into English very well. So I would say, try to find a text that is, in your level. So depending on whether you're a beginner or whether you're intermediate or like advanced, there's all kinds of texts that you can use. And I will recommend a few for French. And start reading those. Use a dictionary. Don't use Google Translate because you're just cheating. You're not really going to learn by using Google Translate. And then work through the text. Try not to compare with a translation. And just, accept that there are going to be words you don't know. I mean, there are words today that I read in whatever book I'm reading that I don't know, that I have to look up. There's gonna always be words that you don't know, and that's fine. It's about, the context and knowing enough words that you get the gist of what's going on, and then rereading. I will kind of start talking about kind of my journey and how I got to the level that I am in. So when I was in high school, I will never forget this. I had this amazing, amazing elderly French teacher who was Parisian. And I was taking the entrance exam because I was transferring from one school to another. And I completely bombed the exam. I mean, I couldn't conjugate any verbs in any of the tenses. I didn't know what I was doing. And she comes in, she looks at my test, and you know how you would expect that you submit the test and then the teacher will grade it on her own time? No, this teacher came in with a red pen and started correcting it in front of me and was like, this is bad. Like, you're going to have to take French 1 again. Which is crazy because I just finished taking French 2. And she's like, but if you work hard enough, I'll let you take French 2. Okay? So I was just like making up future tenses, making up the conditional, like I just complete mess. So then she left, continued taking the test. I mean, I hadn't finished the test yet, okay? She just come in with her red pen, started correcting it. So I am finishing the test. And then she comes back to grade the rest of it. And it was so humiliating. But that was the first time I was really confronted with my, like, the actual level of French that I had. And it was mostly my fault. I'd kind of just not been interested in French when I was in middle school, except for 1 year. I just didn't care. And if you're wondering why it was French and not Spanish, if you're younger than me, you may not know this, but French used to be the language that was taught in schools. It was like the foreign language. Now Spanish is, and French has been replaced by Spanish. And I totally get it. I mean, it's sad and unfortunate, but also Spanish is more widely used in the US. So I get that. But anyway, so I took the test, do terribly, end up having to take French 2. French 2, if you don't know, for all of you non-Americans out here, French 2 is second year high school French or second semester college. Okay, so it's intermediate basically, or intermediate low, intermediate mid, something like that. So I basically had to take a course to learn all the tenses again because I obviously didn't learn it that previous year. And so I start off high school, first day of class, teacher comes in, and guess what language she speaks? French. I had never taken a class in the target language. Like, I'd never taken a class fully, in French. And we were all just like, what? I didn't sign up for this. Like, what is this? I don't know what's going on. And I remember the entire class just listening for the word devoir, which is homework in French. It's like devoir. He's going to mention homework, right? And I did. I got the homework, and I remember telling the students after class, she would like basically pretend she didn't understand English, and like you couldn't speak to her in English. So that was hard. That was it was tough. Like, I felt like I was just thrown into the Atlantic Ocean and was told to swim to shore. I mean, it was crazy. But I learned so much that year. I mean, I did learn all of the tenses I needed to. But on top of that, I actually read my first stories in French. And the book that we used was Le Petit Nicolas, okay? Le Petit, little, Nicolas, Nicholas, okay? You can look it up. It's an entire series of books about this little boy named Nikolai who tells you about his school, his family. He is super cute, and he gets himself in trouble, and he just has such an interesting perspective about like what's going on when his parents are arguing. And he has such a different, it's this sort of a Calvin Hobbes kind of vibe to it, except Nicolas is clearly a child, not a child with like very lofty intellectual ideas like Calvin does. And the book that I read was Le Petit Nicolas des Ennuis, which basically is like the little Nicholas gets in trouble, which follows his schooling. And it's made up of a bunch of different short stories. And I remember the first story we had to read. I didn't know. I mean, I didn't know where to begin. I was like looking up every single word. And then I realized, okay, well, looking up every single word isn't useful. Like, I don't need to look up every single word. I just need to look up enough words to be able to understand the context of what I'm reading. And I started reading the stories and really enjoyed them. And I would highly recommend it. The author of the Le Petit Nicolas series is René Goscinny, who's also the author of Astérix and Obélix. If you know the comic strip, Astérix and Obélix, well, the author of that comic series was the author of Le Petit Nicolas. So they're great. They are, I think, perfect for people with kind of the basics of the French language, like the verbs and like basic stuff. But you'll learn a lot in the process of reading these stories. And I was obsessed. I mean, not only did I finish the story we were assigned, but I just kept going and reading other stories. And then the following year, there was another French teacher, and again, same thing. But this time I was reading Le Petit Prince, The Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, which I was so excited about because it's an absolutely incredible book. And I was so obsessed. I was memorizing the first, I think I memorized 2 chapters in full and recited them to my teacher, which was great because then I had to practice my pronunciation. And I would, obviously make pronunciation mistakes, and she would correct them for me. But I was super nerdy about it. But once you get into something that you love about a language, you'll see it's really, really rewarding. And so, yeah, so I read The Little Prince. And then we read a Molière play, which is actually quite impressive for a third-year French student. I mean, it was hard. Molière was a 17th century playwright, and kind of a little shout out for my Molière in May readathon. So in May, we will be reading 5 of Molière's plays, 5 of his most famous plays. And one of the ones we're going to be reading is Le Bourgeois Gentilhomme, which is the bourgeois gentleman. And that is the play that I read my third year French. And again, I just remember, even when there were certain structures that we hadn't learned, but encountering it first in this context of a story was really great because I got to see it in action. I feel like when you learn grammar in a textbook, you learn it outside of context. Molière is actually impressive. Yeah, it was impressive. It was hard. I remember having to read Tartuffe the following year, and I remember telling my teacher, "This is like Chinese. Like I can't read this. Like what language is this? Like is this French? What is this?" um, but yeah, and it's so cool to go back and reread the books that you struggled through. There's like this incredibly. It's so encouraging. It's like, it's but you get there by starting small. Like don't start small. Look up the words that are the most important to get the gist of what's going on. Be okay with only understanding 30% of a story. Go back and reread it. And it is ideal to have some kind of a setting where you can discuss the work with other people, ideally in French or whatever language. I'm talking about French because that's the language I know. But yeah, so anyway, so in May we're going to be reading Molière, and anyway, the play Le Bourgeois Gentilhomme is fantastic. It's extremely funny. Shakespeare, for example, is great. He's known for his tragedies. He did write some comedies, but he's mostly known for his tragedies. Molière, on the other hand, is known for his comedies, so I think it's kind of perfect for this COVID-19 season that we're in, to kind of laugh and be distracted by something. So I do recommend, if you're looking for a readathon for me, we'll be reading 5 of his plays. And I haven't made an announcement video about it, but I will. But yeah, so that's kind of how it happened for me. And then I just became interested in my own, just checking, getting books out from the library that were in French. And yeah, so that's one thing, is literature, because I really like literature. Now, obviously, if you're here, you like books too. So that's something I recommend, something you can do while you're in social isolation. The other thing is music, right? You have the internet, so you have access to music, you have access to Spotify. And for me, the song that I first learned in French was called Voilà by Jean Chehal. Jean Chehal is an alternative musician, singer, and I loved Voilà so much. I first heard it in the classroom, and I came home and I listened to it like 50 times straight, over and over again. And I learned the lyrics, and then of course I started looking up the words, and like definitely music is wonderful. Now, I tend to have a pretty old-timey music taste, so like I don't really listen to a lot of very modern music. Not entirely. I do like listen to like Young and the Giant or Imagine Dragons, but I grew up with my father's kind of music, so that's the kind of generation of music I like, even in French. And so I would look up the lyrics. Now, if you're looking up, gangster rap, maybe that's not going to be very helpful. It's probably not the kind of language you want to be using in your papers. But then again, it might be the language you want to use on the street. So I don't know. I mean, it depends on what you're going for. All of it is language. All of it is used. But I definitely think that finding music you enjoy and singing along with it, or trying to sing along with it, is just great, because at the very least, it will teach you how to pronounce the words. And that is great. I mean, especially when you are in social isolation, you're trying to figure out how to pronounce words. But yeah, I mean, I started small, and before I knew it, I loved French and I loved the literature. And then when it came to, history, I realized that I had all of this historical material that I now had access to, that I could read, that I couldn't read before. And it's, I do a lot of work with sermons and with treatises, and you're always learning. I mean, I am a PhD student and I work on 16th century French, and it's so different. It's like Latin syntax, and it's a whole thing. So there's always things to learn. You're never, people talk about being fluent in 30 days, and I'm like, how? There's like YouTubers I've seen who have videos about being fluent in a language in 30 days. I wonder what they mean by fluent. Do they mean being able to hold basic conversations, that I can see, but more sophisticated, I don't know. Creole may distract. Okay, so that's a good comment. So Justin says Martinique has interesting music, though Creole may distract from proper learning. It depends. I mean, if you're trying to learn Creole, yeah, Creole and French are very different languages. If you want to learn Creole, then do listen to Creole. However, I do have to say, right? So there is French too that is spoken in Martinique. So yeah, there are some really great Martinique authors. And actually, I should, talk more about Francophone authors. That's a great reminder. French is not only spoken in France, it's spoken in like over 20 countries in the world. And Martinique is actually a part of France. It's a territory of France. And so it certainly doesn't have to be the great white dead men, right? It can be Senegalese, it can be Congolese, it can be like Caribbean, so Haitian. There's this Haitian storyteller named Mémé Barthélemy. She might be great for people who are learning French. I use her in my classes a lot. She passed away, but she used to tell these Haitian folklore story, these stories in a form of song, and they would be about animals. And so then she would kind of voice the animals, and they were just fantastic stories. I really, really recommend her. Her name is Mémé Barthélemy, like Barthélemy. You could Google her, and I definitely recommend her stories, and they should be pretty readable. La Compagnie Créole. Who are they? I actually don't know. Let's see. Can you guys see me? You guys can see me. I'm not sure. Let me see. Oh, it's a pop band. Oh, from French Guinea and French West Indies. Oh, I never heard of them. I need to add them to my list of musicians to listen to. Okay, that sounds cool. Yeah. Keep bringing in all these recommendations. This is great. So I'm like gonna add this to the music I'm listening to. I loved France Gall. I know she just passed away a couple of years ago, but France Gall was like, I love her music so much. And her husband's Michel Berger. I know that Stromae, who's Belgian, I believe, he is really, really popular. And there are like Francophone rappers, and there's just like all of the same things. Honestly, I would say kind of think about what your own interests are, and then see how those, whether those interests, because I mean, most interests, I mean, unless it's like baseball, I don't think baseball is played in France, or, but if you're interested in sports, or if you're interested in, cuisine or fashion, find the thing that's interesting to you, and, find the vocabulary to talk about it. And it can be a way for you to learn more about that area. It's a lot easier to do for a modern language, whereas I'm currently learning Latin because I have to. And honestly, if I had been in school in Europe, I would have learned Latin in school. But Latin is barely taught in the United States. Again, totally get it, right? But since I work on the Renaissance, I really do need to learn Latin. It took 4 semesters, and then I took like a little bit in the summer. And I've kind of done a little bit, but I feel like for the most part, it's vocabulary that I'm the weakest in. Like there's all this vocabulary I need to learn so that I'm not spending like an hour to read a paragraph. Let's see. Other recommendations for music. This band calls Griffith Brothers. I feel commercial old school crossover. Griffith Brothers. Let's see, let's add that. Our band? I don't know if you guys can see me. Oh, I see. They do. They have a band. Okay, cool. Thank you. Sounds great. I also love William Scheller. Again, very old school, like 60s, 70s. It's William Scheller. That's what it looks like. It looks like just some American. But it's like rock and roll with like some symphonic. So it's like symphony music mixed with rock and roll. And it's great. I love it. So music is wonderful. But yeah, with Latin, it's a little bit more difficult because there isn't really, it's not a modern language. And a lot of Latin texts are like about warfare, about, conquering. And somehow the myths don't interest me. Like, I just need to find interest in something so that I can, pick up on the vocabulary. There's this book that I'm currently using for Latin learning. Well, actually, let me start with this. We'll start with this. So for French, if you are a French learner and you need a French dictionary, this is the one that I currently have. It's Hachette, and it's amazing dictionary. It was actually not very expensive, even in Switzerland, which is amazing. This dictionary, if I read it from cover to cover, I would win Jeopardy. Like, there are 25,000 proper names in here, and it's got like everything from different breeds of dogs to different countries. I don't know, like to like science that's explained. There's like entries on absolutely everything here. It's all in French, and you've got like time zones that are being described, and there's like entries on absolutely everything. So I definitely recommend this dictionary. There's also the Robert. There's the Micro Robert, which is small. I would recommend the Petit Robert, is a little bigger. Lingua Latina. Okay. Well, I'm going to answer that question in a moment. But yeah, so this one for French, there's the Robert, and then there's Larousse. Those are like the three major dictionaries. Robert and Larousse. Robert is French. Larousse you can get French or French English. This is a French dictionary. French dictionaries are great. If you want like French English, I definitely recommend either Linguee, Linguee, because it gives you the word in context, and then or word reference. Word reference is great. I've been using it for years. So I got a comment here from Braxton. How about Lingua Latina per se illustrata? So my understanding is that Lingua Latina per se illustrata teaches Latin in Latin. Linguee is great, yeah. It teaches Latin in Latin. I have looked at the first book, and I guess the idea is that when you learn a language in the target language, you learn it the best. I have been very drawn to it because I know that a lot of people swear by the system. I worry that the vocabulary is not going to be the vocabulary that I need to use, like I need to be familiar with. But I don't know, and I've considered it. I know that basically it's a system that was developed by this Danish, I think it was Danish linguist, and the entire book, like the different books are based on like different things, so like family, village, whatever, and everything is in Latin, and so you learn through context versus learning through translation, which sounds fantastic. What I've been using actually is this is actually in French. It's a Latin. It's basically like passages from different Latin authors. So like from Seneca, for example, there'll be a passage from Seneca, or here it's from Ovid. So you have the Latin here, and then you have the keywords in here. Okay, and then you basically, then they translate it for you, and the way they translate it, I don't know if you can tell, but like anything that's in italics is the Latin, Actually, it looks like, I don't know, can you see it correctly or is it mirrored? I actually don't know, because when I'm looking in the camera, the viewfinder, it looks like you can't see it. But in case, they basically do a translation and then they show you the Latin along with it so that you can check your work. And then they also have like grammatical, like a box here that tells you about the grammar to explain what's going on. I have found this book to be very useful, but it isn't like Lingua Latina. Use something else. Okay, so he says, perhaps you could try Lingua Latina as a supplement and use something else to ensure you acquire the necessary vocab. Definitely make sure you're learning what you need. Okay, so you guys can read it fine. Okay, that's good to know, because when I look at the viewfinder, it's all completely mirrored. Yeah, I would look at the Lingua Latina. I love the idea. I know that paraphrasing is a great way, because you have to put what you're reading in your own words in the target language. And yes, I will look into Lingua Latina. I know I see this so much mentioned, and especially because I did go to a school that had a master's program in active Latin. It's kind of these sort of authors. If you know Lingua Latina, you might know Terence Thunberg's book Latin for the New Millennium. It's Terence Thunberg and Milena Minkova. They have a book called Latin for the New Millennium. Now that one is kind of it's kind of a mix. It has some active Latin bits, but mostly it's a traditional Latin textbook. But Terence Thunberg did a Latin translation of The Cat in the Hat, and it's expensive though. It's like $30, which I get. It's a very special kind of translation. I've also though heard that the Harry Potter translations in Latin are really good. So that could be like fun. But again, it's translation, so it's not really authentic. I will look into the Lingua Latina. I think that'll be fun. And then it's funny because I feel like, I don't know, maybe because Latin is taught more in Europe. Like I have a Latin French dictionary. I have the Harry Potter series in Latin, at least that which is available. Yeah, I think the first 2 books of the Harry Potter series are available in Latin. And I've heard that they are very well translated. Whereas like The Hobbit was translated in Latin, and evidently it's a garbage fire of a translation. That's not going to help me. Maybe I should just get into the gods, like, woo, Jupiter, woohoo. Because I know that that's a huge selling point. And also because a lot of these references are in medieval and Renaissance texts. So that too. But the other thing is, discipline. Honestly, the other thing is discipline. Like, let's be real here. You're not going to learn language by doing 1 hour every few weeks. Like, that's just not it. And I have to remind myself of this. When I was learning French, I was obsessed because I have an obsessive personality. I don't know if it's clear. Quae modum inter caelorum immensitate. Within the immense heavens, quae mad. Oh gosh, what is that? Between the immense heavens, quae mad modum. Let's look at my great dictionary. This is how bad my Latin is, guys. This is bad. But yeah. Speaking of that, yeah, the discipline. If you don't have the discipline to learn the language, you're just not going to learn it. And this is just as much for me. What in the world does quae mad modum mean? What do you mean? What does it mean? Always are good, so, but, quae mad modum inter. Oh, so there are many ways. Inter. Within, yeah, because it's between the immense heavens, or the heavens, the immensity of the heavens, right? Immensitatem. Inter takes the accusative, then it's of the heavens, Chailorum. So different ways. There are different ways to the greatness of the heavens. So that's what Quaimad means. All right. Well, anyway, so speaking of discipline, that's clearly what I lack, because I have not been keeping up with this. There was a time when I was, and then I just didn't. So if you want to learn language while you're social distancing, you should not be like me and actually work on it consistently for probably like a half hour a day. Honestly, if you even worked on it for a half hour a day, that'd be great. And, figure out where you are and keep going. So, hopefully, like, what I really do want to do is start working on this an hour a day. I'm going to have to like find the same time and do it every day, because I do sometimes force myself to read Latin when I am doing my research, because now I'm coming across texts that are simply not available even in Middle French. Like they're just in Latin. So this is becoming more and more. I'm more and more desperate to get this language. But some of the things that I could count on in the past just aren't really there anymore. Like the music and the culture is very, well, it's not entirely old. I really like the increased interest in Neo-Latin, because now it focuses on medieval Latin and it focuses on Renaissance Latin, and thinks about how Latin is not just the language of the Roman Empire. So that's really helpful, because that includes a whole diversity of writings. But even so, the lack of I feel like it's a different approach. I'm also not as young as I used to be. I guess that's it too, I know that age is just a number and that people can learn language at any age, but I don't know. I wonder, I'm probably just making excuses. Because whenever my students tell me this, I tell them, no, everybody's a language person. Anybody can learn any language. And I really do believe that. But when you're a child, you do passively pick up things, whereas as an adult, you might have to be more intentional about your language learning. This from Three Musketeers, Amamis talking with D'Artagnan, Aramis, and this. You got this. You got this. This from Three. Like they're talking. Is that? Oh, that's from the quote. Oh, I see. So that quote is from the Three Musketeers. See, I need to read the Three Musketeers in French. I actually read it only in English, like years ago. I was in middle school at the time. I know, what would be really fun would be the Count of Monte Cristo, which everyone keeps saying is like amazing, and I'm like, oh, well, I've never read it. But yes, okay. What other Latin is there? Well, there's Latin that's. I tried to read Jerome. Evidently, the Vulgate is actually not hard to read in Latin. It's hard for me, but that's just because I need to get the vocabulary into my head. So yeah, that's what's been going on with my language learning. I'm always trying to read fun things in French, not just, boring stuff. Oh, is it? Le Comte de Monte Cristo is actually so much better than Les Trois Mousquetaires. So should I read Le Comte de Monte Cristo first, or should I read Les Misérables first? Because I do have to read Notre Dame de Paris for class, but I'm thinking, okay, all right. Dumas wrote so much. I do have like a collection of short stories about Robin Hood that he wrote. But yeah, Le Comte de Monte Cristo, I have never heard a negative review about the book. So Ooh, so you haven't read Les Miserables? I've always wanted to read Les Miserables, but honestly, Le Comte de Monte Cristo sounds more up my alley, just because like I have this impression that Les Miserables is like a romance subplot, and I don't like romance. Whereas like Le Comte de Monte Cristo is like a revenge narrative. I'm like, yes, revenge. If I read it, I will make videos about it for sure. Like I will talk about it because I do want to get to it. What I'm currently reading is, so I just started this today. It is by Jean Daillon. It's called Les Aventures de Guillaume Dussel, Chevalier Troubadour Béziers 1209. So it's like early 13th century, follows this troubadour, this knight troubadour, and it's a historical mystery, and I love historical mysteries. No, I have read both of them, just both masterpieces. Let's see. Oh, right, they're both okay. So I have to read both. Like I'm just being lazy, and I need to read both. Yeah. So this is a medieval murder mystery that's set in the 13th century, and I love historical mysteries because they are set in like there's a historical component which tends to be really fleshed out in these historical mysteries. Like I think about Ellis Peters and the Brother Catfile mysteries, and this sounds like it's going to be good. In the beginning, there's this prostitute who's murdered, and then like they slit her throat. And then we're hearing about like the Catharite heresy and this like all this going on. So I don't know. So that's what I'm reading right now. And then I also have this, which is a trilogy. Now this could be good or it could be absolutely horrible. Okay. So this is Les Lames du Cardinal, which is like made up of 3 books by Pierre Pével. It's a historical fantasy set in an alternative 17th century France, where Cardinal Richelieu, who is the Premier Ministre for Louis XIII, has to fight dragons that are trying to destroy the kingdom. This could be so good. I don't know, just the premise sounds fantastic, but it all depends on how it's done. Like I just love it. I guess I really like kind of that historical backdrop to things and then trying to see what people do with it. If I were to ever write fiction, I keep saying this because like I'm hoping that will actually get me to try creative writing. But if I were ever to write fiction, I would write a historical murder mystery, probably set in the 16th century, maybe Geneva. I have an inspector in mind. That's all I'd say, but I have never really done creative writing, so I would have to start. I'd have to start right at the very beginning. But I love the concept. Let's see. Justin says, D'Artagnan complains about being spoken to in Latin when he speaks French. I love it, right? It's like the conflict of languages and that, like, you know, him wanting to speak in the vernacular and because it takes place in the 17th century, there's like this rise of nationalism, this rise of interest in French being the language and not Latin. This is exactly the conflict that is probably being referenced here. So yeah, what we have learned is that Le Comte de Monte Cristo is great, and I need to get on it. But I have so many books here that I need to read. Because I have like 70 books I have to read for my PhD exam by August. I've read a lot of them, but have you started reading in Latin yet? Well, I mean, that's kind of the book that I have here. So it has passages from Latin texts with like a vocabulary list, and then it does translations. So I have started it, but I haven't really been working on it enough to be able to read Latin. I was reading so there's a text called Nikolai Climigi Iter Subterraneum, which is by Holberg, who was a Danish. Is he Danish? Yes, he was a Danish, like 17th century speculative fiction writer. And I read like a good 50 pages of it in Latin. I was working on it for like an hour and a half every single day for like a month. And it was kind of cool because basically it's the story of this guy named Niels Klim who falls into this underground, like he enters into this cave and he falls basically into orbit, and then he lands in this planet where there are like walking, talking trees. And it's kind of like Jonathan Swift's Gulliver's Travels, except not as good. But still, where like, you know, the world is topsy-turvy and he gets to like look more critically at his own nation. And that was fun. I don't know, again, I quit. So, you know, I have tips to give and also tips that I need to take myself more seriously. So yes, do you guys have like questions, tips, anything that, you know, you want to talk about? Are any of you trying to like improve language while you're in social isolation? Anybody doing any language learning? I know there's like language learning YouTube, there's some pretty impressive. There's like oh gosh, what's her name? She's a YouTuber, Linda. I think her name is Linda, and she's like a polylinguist who speaks several languages, including like Korean, Japanese, some really difficult languages, and it's really impressive. So I know there's a whole side to YouTube dedicated to being a polylingual. I'm just bilingual, so Anastasia. Oh, Anastasia! Is she polylingual? Yeah, she is. She knows French and she knows English. I watch Anastasia. I know her channel. I'm subscribed to her. I was introduced to her by her friend who told me that, oh, if you really like her talking about books and things that are, you know, feminist things, you should watch her channel. And I really like her videos because she is. So I know she knows English and French. I don't know if she knows other languages. It's possible. But yes, I do know Anastasia. What other French YouTubers are there? There are so many. There's this Belgian history YouTuber, and his channel is called Nota Bene. Yeah, it's called Nota Bene. It's so good, and most of his videos are captioned in English, so like highly recommend. He does some high quality videos. Madame L is a YouTuber, I think. Am I subscribed to her? Let's see. I'm subscribed to a few. Is that her name of her channel? Oh yeah, French Booktube is, yeah. I 100% agree. I follow several French Booktuber. Yes. There's Nota Bene and then there's Nota Bonus. There's also one where there's this woman who talks about the history of music, and the other day she was singing along with a lutist, and they were both in. No, Nota Bene is not a language teacher. I don't follow any language teachers. I mean, unless they're language teachers, like, I mean, I don't follow anybody as a language teacher on YouTube. I mean, they might be language teachers in their own like lives. But let me see what French ones I actually do follow, because I follow several and they are really amazing. Let's see. So yes, I follow Anastasia. Acht is yeah, Anastasia is a language teacher. Okay. I follow Art, which you probably know of. It's kind of like it does documentaries. They did a whole series of documentaries on Art about social media, and I thought it was so cool. It was like talking about how Instagram or Facebook or Twitter gets you addicted to the app, or Uber. It was super interesting. That was really nice. Let's see. Let's see. What else do we have? There's Doc 7, which is French. They did a whole series on the United States, and I just thought it was really cool to see how this. I guess he's French. Like how they talk about the U.S. And it was like cool. There's like one of the videos they were talking about like North Dakota, and they're like North Dakota is a state that not even Americans care about. And I was like, ooh. Yeah, I saw they were discussing Huis Clos by Saf. I know that they just started a book club, but I was like, I can't read all these books. I've never read Huis Clos. I've read a few things by Saf. I've read L'Anose, and I've read Les Jeux sont faits, and I think that's it that I've read by him. I've read L'Anose several times. Sartre, I think, is a great fiction writer, but I hate his philosophy. That's personal opinion. Pierre Louis says, I tried to learn Italian a bit, but I'm not very dedicated, more of a side project. I'm feeling this right now with Latin. It's like, I need to learn this, but I'm not very dedicated. Was it interesting? Okay, the live was interesting. That's cool. I might actually go back. I'm sure they're gonna just tape the video, but yeah, I saw it come up on my feed. Let's see what else we got. There's Knit and Read, who is a French booktuber, and she does videos both on books and also on knitting. There's La Prof. I think is La Prof the one who does music? No, she does history. Yeah, she does history. There's Le Marc Page, which is a booktuber who does animated videos. Le Moc. Do I know Le Moc? No, I don't. How do I know about them? Okay. Oh, so he's one of the people who's running this book club. Okay, I'll subscribe. Here we go. Subscribing. Thank you. There's the Stagiaire. I don't think they have. There's of course like Linguisticae. Ooh, Linguisticae is cool. It's like history of language, and linguistics. That one's cool. There's Madame Irma, who is another booktuber. Marie Saint-Filtre. I'm sure you know Marie Saint-Filtre. I have so many thoughts about her channel. Sometimes her videos are funny, and sometimes I'm just like, no, absolutely not. Marie Saint-Filtre is this woman who she kind of plays pranks, and like she basically puts herself where she doesn't need to, where she shouldn't be. And I think she like got in trouble with like the French police because she was like pretending. Let's see what else we have. Amazing French booktuber. Booktubers. There's Question d'Histoire. Of course, there's France Culture. Okay, Le Moc is your favorite booktube channel. Last, I just subscribed, so that's cool. And let's see. Oh, Scherzando. Scherzando is wonderful. It's Scherzando. Scherzando does a lot on the history of music, and there was this wonderful duet that she did with a lutenist, a lute player, and of course they were in social isolation, and I just thought it was just so brilliantly done. Madame Irma is great. Yep. Let's see. Where else? What else do we have? There's Toute l'Histoire. There is Veritasium French? No, that's English. Éclair Brut. Éclair Brut is a lot of the a lot of the videos come from France Culture. And then there's Elodie Loré, who's an author tuber. So I'm discovering French author tube, as I'm also discovering English author tube. And that's kind of cool to see, you know, what's going on there. Oh, Marie Saint-Filtre. I don't know. I love the one where she goes to Geneva because I love watching it because I know the places where she is when she visits Geneva. I'm like, oh, this is like where I go to the library. Like I know these places. So that's kind of funny. That one was pretty funny, but then there's ones. She's controversial. I'm late because of internet issues. That's why my answers are late. No, it's fine. Nota Bene had a video with channel recommendations. Yeah, I think I probably subscribe to all of them, but I will definitely check that out. I'm always looking for more documentaries, and I love nature shows. Like it's something that I don't talk about on this channel. I don't know why, but I'm obsessed with like nature. When I'm at home with my family, I watch almost National Geographic all day long. I read books written by scientists who work in conservation I've read something on the bobcat recently, the mountain lion, wolves, different wolves, red wolves, gray wolves, love nature. And so I think there is like a nature YouTube channel in French that I follow. But I'm always looking for more nature stuff because, well, new animals are great to learn about. But yeah, I love nature. I should find a way to weave that into what my channel has now become, which is just me talking about all the things I love. Sartre is maybe akin to Howard Zinn, Noam Chomsky. I'm not that knowledgeable, but I get he and Fanon crossed paths. Oh yeah, I read my first Frantz Fanon recently. Peau Noire, Masque Blanche. Masque Blanc, right? Peau Noire, Masque Blanc. I made a video about it. It was very interesting. Sartre, yes, wolverines are smart and endangered, yes. And the poor pangolins, they've been making the news so much because so the pangolins are highly, highly endangered. They're like these aardvark looking animals. And they're poached for their body parts. I guess they're believed to be medicinal or something in China, I think. And then there was like some article that came out that was blaming the coronavirus on the pangolins. And so, of course, then people were killing even more pangolins than they were before. Bushmeat. Yeah, okay, that might be what it is. Anyway, conservation is a huge thing, and the politics of it, Zatu. Let's see what we got. Pierre-Louis Blanchard. Do you know Zatu? No, I do not, but now I do. It's German. Is it in French? German. I don't know. You can watch all kinds of free TV from France. Le 5, for example, or news from Polynesia on France. Oh. Okay, I need to look into this. This is actually really good. You can get channels in all kinds of languages. Okay. No, that's great. There are some really good I saw a documentary on the octopus, La Pieuvre. It was great in French. I'm trying to see if yes, I think it was called. Maybe it was called Les Mystères de la Pieuvre or something like that. It was about this, basically about the octopus, and it was great. And I learned the word for octopus in French. All really good things. I will look into this channel. This is good. Sometimes I go on Netflix. There's some stuff on Netflix that's in French. Or there's like a French option. Oh, you know what has been fun to watch? Disney Plus. I've enjoyed watching the Disney movies in French because the songs are all different. Like I rewatched Beauty and the Beast and what other movies did I see? Well, Beauty and the Beast is the one that comes to mind. I rewatched that in French, and the songs, like the tune is the same, but the words are so different. And it's been a lot of fun watching the Disney movies in French. I will always miss Angela Lansbury singing "Tale as Old as Time," but it was really cool. And actually, it was really appropriate for Beauty and the Beast because this is a French story. I should talk. You know what? I should talk about fairy tales more because all these fairy tales, like many of them, have like a French root. And of course, there are fables, and yeah, fairy tales are like super in right now, and everybody's writing fairy tale retellings. So yes, there's a lot of fun stuff. Anyway, this has been a lot of fun. Um, are there videos that you'd want to see me make, like on these lives or anything? Like I love getting ideas from people because it like helps me know like what people actually want to see. I'll let you guys finish with that, and then we'll call it a day. If you have anything like, if you're like, Freeba, why don't you make a video about this thing? Just let me know. Videos in French. Okay. Yeah, I should. I should totally do it. And it would be so good. I mean, I just finished Les Liaisons Dangereuses. Like, I could do a whole video about it in French. And then I could actually talk about it. And it would be really good practice to just speak off the cuff and just be okay. Just do it. I need to do it. Okay. Yeah. Favorite French books. Good one. Yes, because I have many, many favorite French works. Every year in my favorites list, there's some French works that I have, but favorite French books. Yep. Videos in French. Especially if I think this book, for example, when I finish it, like I don't even think it's translated. Okay. Yeah. So I should do it in French. Yeah. I think that would be good. And then I could really, I try to comment on French booktubers, but yeah, I think I'd be part of French booktube as well. Francophone booktube. Because that'd be fun. That sounds great. Anybody doing the reading rush this week? There's like a reading rush challenge. I mean, basically you just read, and it's casual and it sounds fun. I mean, this book kind of has a house on the cover. One of the challenges is to read a book with a house on the cover. Practice physical separation. For me, I'm off to answer COVID-19 filler malfunction. Like filters? You work on filters? Well, if you're still working outside, I stay safe. Thank you for your work. Yeah, so I think I'm gonna go now too. It's been an hour, but it's been wonderful. It's great to see you guys here. I will make my videos in French, and thank you for all the recommendations. I'm adding them on. And if you are practicing language, you work in a hospital. Okay, you're thank you. Every day at 9 p.m. here, we like play music outside and like try to celebrate all of the emergency workers. You guys are doing a great job. Thank you. Stay safe, and hope you guys have a great week. Practice your language learning, and also I know that you can't really go outside. You have to social distance, but like if you have a porch, like kind of getting some fresh air has been nice. All right, ciao. Oh, thank you, Zaya.